All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Man That Can Project podcast. Today, I'm super grateful to have Joel Walsh on. Joel's got a wealth of knowledge and a really motivated young individual who's doing some great things and, making some massive waves, but also has overcome some pretty powerful stuff, which I'm excited to sort of learn more about your story and get some wisdom from you, mate, because you're a bloody mentally tough person. I love following your stuff because I relate to, the mental challenges you put yourself through. I think it's brilliant. So, mate, how you going anyway, first and foremost?
Oh, mate, as we all are, we're kind of running on the fly here and doing our best, but I can't complain, mate. I live in a beautiful part of Australia in the Blue Mountains in Sydney, so I can't complain. My backyard's amazing. It's Chrissy time. It's the best time of the year. Family's all well and healthy, and just kind of winding down for the year. So for myself, mate, I'm traveling quite well. I'm pretty happy. And I'm just real fortunate to be on here with you today. I've been looking forward to this for as long as it's taken us to tee it up. So
yeah, it's been a while, that's for sure, mate. I'm glad we've made it happen, especially obviously in the busiest time for a lot of us. So I appreciate you making the time, mate. But let's sort of dive in. So I'd love to sort of get to know where you're going, but more so share, I guess, an experience or a few experiences that have really helped shape you into the man that you are today. Because from watching from afar, you're doing some very inspiring stuff, and you're definitely making a lot of sacrifices to spread a powerful message and to get the job done.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, in what's been such a crazy year as that's just getting thrown around, that's commonplace now. It's really been a very transformative year for myself. Started off the year on rocky waters, I guess, with breakups and finding myself just falling into the wrong habits and building, I'd say, negative habits. But now back into the year when things are even getting tougher, tighter, and people are still juggling all that's going on, I found myself in a really good place where I have been able to set challenges and complete them. And I've just got this whole other perspective right now where it doesn't come down to gratitude. It's more from the point of I'm so happy and content with where I am in my life that in itself is the motivating factor for me to go and contribute to others. And every single day, I just reaffirm that to myself, that I have this really loving family. I have 2 arms, 2 legs. I can go train the house down every single day. I have 2 jobs that I love. And I kind of just owe it to everyone else that doesn't have that and is disadvantaged, that I can go and do my best, because I believe that if you can, you should. And giving is like the greatest thing you can do. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, mate. And just enjoying the ride and rolling with it.
It's awesome. Have you always had that mindset that obviously, giving back to others is such a powerful thing? Or is it something that you've sort of learned along the way through some of your own experiences, maybe other people giving to you, or has it just been, conditioned from an early age?
No, definitely. I know, definitely been conditioned from an early age. Coming from like a single mother kind of upbringing, me and my sister, we had to kind of really look out for each other. And mum, we saw firsthand, especially me being quite a lot older than my younger sister, I saw firsthand what sacrifice really is in its kind of most raw and confronting form. And that's probably the one thing that she kind of groomed and conditioned to me was just always give yourself to others. If you can, lend a hand. And that was instilled from me from such a young age, but not even by her forcefully or overtly doing it. It's just, I saw it. Mum was my role model. I didn't have that stereotypical, I want to be like my dad kind of vibe, I would call it. Mum's always been up in front of me as a leader. And I just saw what she did, not even for me and my sisters, but for everyone else in the family. She's kind of that cornerstone or that rock that kind of holds everything together. She's the glue. And I just kind of wanted to mirror myself off that. And as I found myself get older and I saw what kind of came of that, not in a sense of like I was doing something to receive something, but I saw that the world works in really mysterious and funny ways where you do the right thing and make someone else's day a little easier. Things have a real funny way of coming back to you, whether that's a positive or a negative. If you make someone's life difficult, which I can openly say I have before, it comes back in funny ways and hits you when you least expect it. But for mum, I saw that all the adversity, all the troubles and stuff that she went through. And now where she's at right now, it's just, I sit back and I go, all of that struggle, all of that giving, all of that selfless, pretty much being and living, she's now on top of the world, and living her best life. So it was just, that was the biggest thing that I took away from my childhood. It was that in itself right there.
It's a powerful learning, man. And thanks for sharing that. I think it's, I got a lot of mates who have just become parents now, and I've had mates who had single parents as well. And I can't imagine, I from someone who has had my parents together and all that sort of stuff. And often you see parents who aren't prepared to give or aren't prepared to do kind things because they're in their own little bubble, and they do have, an extra set of hands to help and all that sort of stuff. So I think, it's such a powerful thing to have a role model like your mum, who was doing it by herself, but still prioritizing giving and looking out for other people and trying to make other people's days better. I think is it's just such an incredible thing, because often, as you said in the introduction, like we live in one of the luckiest countries in the world here in Australia, and one of the most beautiful places, yet often we don't lift our head up enough to see what we can give to other people because we're so focused on our own shit. And it gets hard. It always does. Like, that's life. But being able to
take a minute and sit back and just smell the roses. I know it sounds real kind of corny and trivial, but for me, I've lived in the Blue Mountains of 5 years now, and only this year had I started actually doing bushwalks and driving up the mountains and looking at the Three Sisters, and these seeing like people travel from all over the world and come and look at the Blue Mountains, and it's literally my backyard. And it took me till now to go and actually try it and do it and realize, wow, I've got it good. And then having such a strong, independent woman that is a very proactive person that just goes and gets, you know what I mean? If she wants to do something, she'll, if she needs to do that, she just, I like to call her, she just handles business. She handles business. She does what she needs to do. She attends to the others before that she tends to herself. And I'm just, I'm following in the footsteps pretty much.
I love that. And I think it's often the people that you see, quoting you, is handling the business. Like, they're often the people who don't have time to sit around and, I guess, say poor me and all that sort of stuff, because life has to be moving, right? It's often, whether it's coming from survival or you want to get shit done, you don't have time to be sick. You don't have time to, sort of sit and complain. So I think that's such a powerful trait to have. And I think that's, why you've been achieving so much as well, which is...
Sorry, mate.
You
I
go.
think COVID has been a huge part in that for me. It showed me that it really pulled us all out of the rat race and just gave us that time. It paused the treadmill of life and just kind of sat us back and go, okay, everything's on hold right now. Look at what you've got at your disposal, regardless or irrespective of everything else that's going on in the world right now, quarantines and lockdowns and borders. Look what you have enough. You know what I mean? So it kind of highlighted to, I think, a lot of people, including myself, what you have right in front of you. And that, like, for me, the biggest learning that I took away from it is that being present is like the greatest gift. You know what I mean? Don't worry about tomorrow or yesterday, or let go of things. And like, yeah, the woe is me mentality, you got to kind of shift that and just focus on what you're doing, and then you can really see the picture.
And moving forward, because I'm sure a lot of people had that same realization, do you have any sort of things that you've put in place to make sure that you don't, I guess, fall back into that way of thinking, or, we all get caught up in the rat race, or just trying to be like, we want more. So moving forward for you, how are you going to sort of prioritize being present and enjoying what you've got at the moment?
For me, and everyone's kind of got their own little toolkit with all the self-help and well-being kind of space right now that I'm super, super happy is actually in place and in the forefront of a lot of people's minds. For me, mantras and quotes and affirmations and diarizing, these are the tools that I kind of harness to ensure that I'm very focused on the day at hand. So I always go back to my diary, which is, like my right-hand man. I've got a couple of whiteboards situated in my room where I have one that's entirely dedicated to my studies, and I have one that's entirely dedicated to training, and then I have another one for just the day ahead. And on that day ahead one, I have a specific mantra that just gets into my head. I read it every morning. It gets right in my head. It's first thing in the morning, and it's just about it pretty much reminds me the benefit of being present and attentive to what you're doing right now. And what that allows you to do, that allows for me to make the biggest impact, is if I'm absolutely and utterly focused on what I'm doing at hand. And then because of the diary, I obviously schedule my weeks and I compartmentalize my days. I know that when I'm at training, I'm at training. That's it. You know what I mean? I'm there to enjoy myself, have a bit of a break, but get it done. And then I move on. I leave the gym and that's it. It's no more gym. And then I go to work from during the day, focus on work. Don't worry about, I might have some like things to attend to later on, or like I might have some bills coming up. So no, you're at work. And it's just that kind of mentality that allows me to just be there and not worrying about this and that and this and that. Obviously, there are times where things get a little sticky, and there are certain situations or circumstances that we're placed in where you do have to kind of have a duality about your mind. You need to be able to focus on something that's over there and over there, and those things happen. But I find for me, in order for me to be present, I need these little tools to remind me that if you want to make your greatest impact at this situation, at this place, you need to be focused. And especially for my studies, that has been like, I've seen the hugest impact and kind of growth for myself there in my grades and my kind of satisfaction around studying in uni. So that's what I use. That's my toolkit.
That's awesome. And did you just develop those, like, I guess it's always constantly evolving, but you've sort of found what works for you and then sort of dialed in on that and become really efficient with that as well, off the back of everything that you've learned and seen the results of?
Yeah. Even as a kid, though, I can like, it stems back to it's real, like kind of deep seated in my childhood and who I am as a person. Given what our situation was, we had to be very, very organized. I played a lot of sports growing up. My sister played sports. Mum was working full time, and we had a lot of circles, a lot of balls to juggle. So we had to be very, very organized. And I really, really liked that because I was quite an introverted and anxious kid. I didn't deal very well when I didn't know what we were doing that day or what time we were leaving. I needed to know. And although that's caused me a few headaches in the last couple of years with anxiety and things like that, I think it's still, the pros outweigh the cons there with the habits I built as a kid about being very, very organized. And I've kind of just carried that on. And as I've gotten older, the responsibilities obviously grow, but I've been able to really, dial in on those things. And then I think a couple of years ago, I just tried a diary and I was like, I'll give it a good crack for 3 weeks. I'll write down. And then I really enjoyed, because I do like a little circle and a tick when it's done. Yep. So like, for example, this morning it was read, stretch, make bed, get to the pool. And I come home and I go boom, boom, boom. And then you knock them off like bowling pins, you know what I mean? And it just kind of had this ripple effect. And I just momentum has never stopped since that point onwards. And it's, for me, it's just a system of accountability, which stems back to training and to my childhood of sporting environments. And it just all kind of they all intersect. And for me, I found that it's just, keeps me going forward, never taking a step back, and always ensuring that I leave no stone unturned, because I don't deal very well with regrets or feeling regretful. So just take the opportunities at hand.
100%. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. And I remember where, I think it was back at the start of the year, we were trying to book in that podcast the first time. And, prior to that, you'd been doing a lot of raising awareness for mental health through your own ways. Then obviously you've gone on and done a 12-hour, or how many marathons, triathlons did you do? Or like it was?
So it was, it was a quadruple-a-thon. So it was 4 marathons, 2 on a bike, 1 on the rower, and 1 run. So 4, but 2 on a mixed modality kind of triple marathon.
Yeah. And that's a huge accomplishment in itself, but obviously you were doing it to raise awareness and all that sort of stuff. But for you, what sort of got you into the space of wanting to raise awareness for mental health and everything like that? And then obviously leading into wanting to put yourself through what you put yourself through.
What no other sane man would do.
Yeah.
Well, the mental health kind of thing, I unfortunately had to walk a mile in the shoes of someone that suffers from anxiety and touches a depression for me to actually want to get involved in it and be a bit of an advocate for it. It was, I think, close to 2.5, almost 3 years ago now, where I kind of had my first reality check or dose of high functioning anxiety. it essentially caused relationships to break down. I was very grouchy. I wasn't enjoying anything, but from the perception of others, it was, you have no reason to be kind of upset or unsatisfied with your life. You've got all these things going on. You're doing what you want. You're posting on socials that everything's great and you're loving it. But deep down, I was just like putting on this real like strong facade and like a social mask that I'm sweet and I'm just doing like everything that I'm doing is great and it's amazing. But it really wasn't. I felt this really overbearing sense of pressure that no one had put on me. I put it on myself because I thought that the perception was I needed to be this go getter, go type person. And then it all came crashing down as we are aware of with those crippling issues that you can't maintain it, unfortunately. Like everything has to come to a stop at some point. And for me, it was just a breakdown at the beach. And then as I took the steps to rehabilitate and help myself with my family and the girlfriend at the time and all the people that did jump right behind me and push me along, I just felt that I saw what worked for me. I think I have some sort of a platform in my area where I can put myself out there, and I'm willing to put myself out there now. And I even remember about 2 years ago, I just saw this quote. It was, there is greater strength in vulnerability than most people will think. And I kind of sat there and really pondered it for a while because I did a lot of self-reflection in that period when I was struggling. And I just thought, wow, that resonates with me so deeply because it is so true. Like I'm always that guy that will put myself out there when I'm with a group of friends and I'll be the class, like the clown, and I'll be the center of attention. I don't mind. Like I don't generally really care what people think. And I think that what I could do is help other people because I don't want anyone to go through what I went through. That was, for lack of a better word, horrendous. It was just, I hated it. So that's where that all stemmed from. And I just thought I really like enjoy this space, this well-being kind of sphere and things that I can kind of pull from my nutrition stuff and my fitness. And again, that intersection of other areas of my life, it just built and built and built. And as the analogy goes, once the snowball's rolling, like it's hard to stop. And I've just been, riding the wave since then. I'm trying to spread the word, intervene and help others, and I continue to put myself out there for people to kind of look to if they need it.
Yeah, that's awesome, mate. And it's definitely needed in this point in time. And for yourself, you mentioned you were doing a lot of self-reflection through that period. Was that hard to do? Because I know from my own experience, when I had to go through a heap of self-reflection, there was a lot of hard truths to probably acknowledge about myself and some things to fix up. What sort of came up for you, and how'd you sort of go about overcoming those things?
First of all, thanks for sharing that. Like, it's good to hear that. Yeah, the hard truths was honestly the hardest part for me. There were some really hard pills to swallow, and I had to take my dose. I had to do it. Being quite a confident and outgoing person now, it was very hard for me to be raw and real with myself and go, you have kind of screwed this up. Like there are reasons why this is happening. And unfortunately, for the most part, the onus was on me. And I think I wanted to play the blame game at the start, which obviously if you want to do anything properly, you've got to do it yourself, and you've got to own it. You've got to own your shit. And I didn't want to do that at the start. So when I was reflecting, why do I feel this way about this situation? Well, you're insecure because you did the wrong thing back in the day. And now you've got this constant, you feel like someone's watching over you because you stuffed up, and now you think other people are going to stuff up and do the same to you. And you're very anxious in public situations because you feel like people are watching you. It's because you used to judge people and look at people and make comments. You know what I mean? And it was just like I think I had a real honest conversation with one of my good friends, and I'm glad he gave me the kick up the ass because he goes, Joel, your shit don't stink. Like, yeah, you're a good guy, great person. You've done some cool things with your life, with your sport and stuff like that. But mate, your shit don't stink anywhere near as much as you think. And once I got a hold of that and like let go and realized that, yeah, like I'm nothing special. I'm a normal person just like everyone else. And in order for me to fix this, if I really want to, I've got to do this myself and accept that a lot of this comes back to my behaviors and choices of the past.
That's unreal. And that's the sort of stuff you're saying, how it's like we see in others what we, ultimately see in ourselves. And I think it's Dr. Carl Jung who talks about like that shadow self. And I can 100% relate to, when I would, because I cheated in the past and did things like that, I'd always expect my partner to be cheating. So I'd be checking phones and I'd be acting in a way that I didn't want to act, but I couldn't control it. And I'd never once realized it was just a reflection of myself.
Preaching to the choir, mate.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of blokes sort of relating to what you were just sharing, we often do see in others what we see in ourselves. And in order to be able to move forward and I guess heal those relationships and improve upon things moving forward, we need to learn to accept and acknowledge those things about ourselves, understand that, most of us unfortunately have to learn those lessons. Most people don't have the best role models, or people don't ever talk about it, especially with, what we're talking about here. So unfortunately, we have to learn it through experience. And unless, there's people like yourself and what we're doing here who are starting to talk about it more, so more people hopefully don't have to learn the hard way. But once we acknowledge that, it's like, okay, well, how can we then move forward from that? So accept it and then move forward, realize that we can change, we can, our past doesn't define who we want to be. And so for yourself, like obviously once you worked on those hard truths, that sort of put you into the space where you're wanting to hold space for others and raise awareness for others, and you're doing an amazing job at that. What sort of was the motivation then to get the quadruplathon, like the massive, I can't imagine how challenged that would have been.
It was a real funny day but yeah, like touching on what you were saying, like if you can avoid a car crash, you're going to avoid it. And for you and I think we can both kind of attest to that, our situations, they're car crashes, and you know what I mean? And in order to correct those, I think a part of that is helping someone else out so they don't have to walk a mile in your shoes. And someone who's quite like-minded to yourself and me is Matt Riley, and he's the guy I did it with. And he's very, very passionate about the space, and he's got his own skeletons, and we openly talk about it now. We want to be the two kind of focal points of kind of communication and leadership in the space of mental health in our area, the Lower Blue Mountains. And I just messaged him one night. I'm like, oh, let's do it. Let's do it. Like, let's do something big. And he goes, big? I'm about big. Let's go. And I met up with him, and it was kind of like, we kind of just started real small. I think I jotted out, I was like, oh, maybe we can try and like row a marathon. And it started at that. And Matt being a very optimistic person, and he does love a challenge, and he is a very, very physically gifted CrossFit Games type person. He's been in that space for a long time. So he's no stranger to hard work. And then from there, it kind of, he upped me and he goes, okay, yeah, row a marathon. Why don't we row and run? I'm like, cool. So like we'll row a marathon in the morning and then have like a 4 or 5 hour gap, and we'll come back at night and we'll run it. And then he goes, nah, in succession. And then before I even got to speak, and he's, you know what, we'll throw a C2 marathon on there, and then like the Concept 2 bike. And then before I just had this really, I would have loved to have seen my face from his perspective, but I was just like, and before I even got to like maybe shut down what his ideas were, his aspirations, he goes, you know what, we'll double bike it. It's not that hard to do a marathon C2. And I was just like, wait. So we're running, we're rowing, and we'll double biking. And he goes, in succession, in 12 hours at 3 a.m. And I go, all righty, sign me up. Let's go. Let's do it. But then given the magnitude of the task that we had set out, we wanted to really make sure that we did it properly. So we set out quite a large target. We linked up with Livin, which is a brand that my friend Zach had done a charity for previously. And he kind of paved the way for me to get the reels rolling into doing something like this. And it was pretty much from then on, for that moment on, we were just like, all right, let's go full steam ahead and do as much as we can in the space and prep for this event and make an impact. Because we had 2 young suicides in our local area in the space of a month, and and I'm talking 16 and 18-year-old girls. And it's just that still just absolutely like baffles me how that happens. When I was 16 and 18, that wasn't in the stratosphere of my mind. I'm thinking about girls riding scooters, playing footy, and like footy tarzos, you know what I mean? Like, and it just and it really rocked us, our community. So that was the kind of, that was the kickstart of it all.
Yeah. It's crazy how you hear about the stories that you just mentioned of like young people taking their life by suicide. Um, it is tragic, and it's awesome that the levels that you went to, and I can imagine you would have learned, you would have been in that hurt locker for a fair bloody while, and you would have had some tough conversations internally with yourself. And one thing I love about fitness, and I'm sure you can definitely relate, is you can put yourself in those situations where you got to have some tough conversations with yourself and check how committed you are to achieving it. And you go through that whole experience. And the beauty of that for me is if I know I can do it in my the fitness component of my life, I can then build up those same.
It
Yeah, transfers over, which
100%. And for me, yeah, the head noise was full on. Like I was training at ridiculous hours because of the like just my life, and I couldn't obviously put my life on hold just for this event. I had to keep everything else going, and yeah, the head noise. And obviously, given what I was doing, how specific it was, when I got the program from my coach, it wasn't like a group thing. So I'm training solo for long periods of time, doing single modality work. And I found out a lot about myself, and I found out how fortuitous I can actually be. And for me, across that whole kind of period, it was just, yeah, like a mental game, like internal dialogue, and trying to be positive and trying to constantly reaffirm why I'm doing this. Like I'm pushing through the pain for the betterment of other people. Like, let's go, Joel. Like you got this type thing. And mate, it's only the opening act in what's going to be a quite long story for Matt and I, and hopefully people like yourself who can like use what they've got, their gifts, their passion, and their drive to strike the change that's needed.
100%. It's yeah, I'm excited to continue to watch that grow and evolve for you because it's a powerful thing. We did 2 or the not this was the first year we didn't run it, but 2 years prior we've done 12-hour fitness challenges and just thrown in like CrossFit, WODs, triathlons, all this sort of stuff. And I remember last year challenged me because we finished with a triathlon and I jumped in the pool and just cramped up and had to be dragged out because my body was absolutely shattered. But tying it back into what you were saying with you get to spend a lot of time with yourself, and during that moment in time, you get to learn a lot about yourself. And I feel like there's a lot of uncertainty in people's minds, a lot of uncertainty in people's lives, which leads to us to sort of have a lot of confusion, stress, fear, anxiety, all that sort of stuff. And I think as uncomfortable as it is, sorry, being by yourself, whether it's meditation or it's sitting on the bike for a certain amount of time, you do get to understand yourself more. You do get to understand your limits. You do get to understand what's important to you. Like you were saying with COVID, I've had a lot of time to just sit and reflect. And through those moments in time, it's then given us more clarity, maybe more structure and direction to really step into who we want to be. And I think it's such an incredible thing. So whether people get on board with you next year, or even off the back of hearing what you've done, like they get inspired to do their own sort of challenges, it's like you're going to learn so much, and the ripple effect.
I feel that, and I was one of those people. I'm no stranger to that. Like people are not comfortable in their own skin, and they're not okay with being on their own. I, for one, was one person, but right now I'm totally like I can go for a cruise down to the coffee shop on my own, grab a coffee, sit on my own, walk back. I can spend a weekend just cruising at mine, like you know what I mean. And things like that, you don't really. It's hard to get better at that because you're so afraid of just being on your own, because you do feel isolated, and it can be quite daunting. But you do have to have that time to yourself. Obviously, we live in a very hyper social world. We're all connected in one way or another through technology and media platforms, but you need that time away from all that, with yourself, with your thoughts, where you can, as we said at the start, be present. If you're constantly go talking to people and socializing with, there's nothing wrong with that, because that has its place in our life. People, you do need to have that time where it's just you, your thoughts, with the feet up or whatever it looks like for you. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't put themselves in that situation, or they're still too afraid. And there were other things, there were other messages that I was trying to convey to the people that were like watching from afar.
Yep. And it's what you said earlier, where it's like, you might have stepped into that victim mindset or look to blame. That's the easiest thing to do because it gets it off you really quickly. It's the same with
100%.
deflecting to needing to be around people all the time. It has its place, but when there's questions or things coming up for you, that's the time where we have to go, right, there's no one else that can do this. It has to be me. And we have to step into that to acknowledge, understand, and grow from it. But I know we've got limited time. So one last question, man. I'd love to know your definition of what it is to be a man.
That is a great question. And I think it's a very, very, on that, I think touching with you, what you've done for me, watching your story from afar and what you do and the change that you strike within your community with the men that you surround yourself with is unreal. And Matt and I have been watching, and we do feel that there's a similar need for that down here with the men in our area. So I just did want to make a point of that at some point in our chat when we got a minute, that I'm really, really in admiration of what you do, and you're unreal. You're amazing, mate. But my definition of a man is someone that is totally and utterly content with themselves, regardless of what that looks like. Someone that gives themselves to others, that takes time from themselves and realizes that there is no framework, there is no model, there is no blueprint. You need to navigate that yourself. And I think that you can't be a chameleon. You've just got to write your own script and be your own man. So it sounds very kind of even confusing for some people, but for me, it's just someone that is just so content and happy with being themselves, regardless of circumstance and situation.
I love that, mate. I think that's brilliant. I know there's going to be a lot of men that listen to that and go, fuck yeah, that's exactly what it means for me as well. So thanks for sharing that. And mate, where can people find you if they want to connect with you and keep up to date with what you're doing and everything like that? Because I will definitely have you back on so we can have more of a in-depth yarn, but also check in with the crazy shit you're doing. But
we're busy men, aren't we? We're in the rat race right now.
Exactly.
Got us going.
I know, it's worth it.
So I usually just use Instagram. It's probably my the best way to catch me. So it's Joel Walsh _. I'm on there pretty often, but yeah, if someone wants to shoot me a message, I would love to have a chat and see what they're about.
Yeah, awesome. I'll attach that in the show notes for those listening, so you can just click on it. Super easy. But mate, thank you for giving up your time. I know you're an extremely busy man and you got a heap of stuff to do this afternoon, but we'll stay in touch and we'll have you back on shortly.
Mate, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me on. It's been a minute, so thank you for having me on, and keep doing what you're doing, mate, because you're really, really doing some big things, and I'm proud of you.
Appreciate it, mate. Thank you.